All right, here now the gospel. When Jesus had come down from the mountain, great crowds followed him. And there was a man with a skin disease who came to him and knelt before him, saying, "Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean." He stretched out his hand and touched him, saying, "I am willing, be made clean." Immediately his skin disease was cleansed. Then Jesus said to him, "See that you say nothing to anyone, but go, show yourself to the priest, and offer the gift that Moses commanded as a testimony to them." Here's the gospel. Unclean! Unclean! That's what lepers had to shout when anyone came close to them. Growing up, I grew up in a town called Capernaum, which is in the north shore of the Sea of Galilee. And I remember as a young boy going with my dad down to the shore to do some fishing. And every so often, we'd hear this, "Unclean, unclean." And further down the shore, we'd see people in these raggedy old clothes. And so I asked my dad, why are they shouting unclean, and why are they wearing those rags and clothes and looking so miserable? He said, they're lepers. They're not allowed to come near anyone. And if you look closely, you'll see that they have stuff going on with their skin, blotches and boils and warts and growths and things like that. So I looked, and I had pretty good eyes. And they were kind of ugly looking, kind of deformed, and something was really wrong with them. So I learned early on about lepers and how we had to stay away from them, how they were dangerous to us because they could make us unclean. And I always wondered, why and how did they get the curse of leprosy? Why did this happen to them? And I always remember being so thankful that I wasn't one of them. Then one day as a teenager, I started getting a rash. It was no big deal. It didn't really itch, but I noticed it. And the next day, it spread up my arm, and I started getting boils. It started scabbing over. Then I started getting worried. And I remember scrubbing, trying to get my skin clean again so it was okay. But eventually it spread so much that he finally took me to the rabbi. And the rabbi, after looking very closely at my skin, said those words I did not want to hear. He said, "You have leprosy. You're a leper now. Immediately go out of the town. You can no longer be near your family or anyone else because they might also get the curse of leprosy." In that moment, my life changed, and not for the better. I immediately I guess you could say I walked out of town. It felt more like I was driven out of town. And I found out that there was a place nearby where the lepers kind of lived. And it wasn't a very good place because once you had leprosy, you couldn't stay on the farm where you could farm with your family. You couldn't hang around the people who had resources. We lived in caves. And I was surrounded by people with this curse. I was thankful that mine was not as bad as some of theirs. Some of them were so deformed they could hardly move. And it made it hard for them really to move around, really to do anything. And so I did what I could. I helped them. I cried a lot. together we tried to make a life, but it didn't feel like much of a life. I kind of took a lot of pity on myself. It's like, why did this happen to me? Had I done something wrong? Had I somehow not followed one of the laws of God and not atoned for that? Why was I cursed with leprosy? Now, occasionally, my parents would come and bring some food. But it's like they could come to there and leave the food and shout at me because we weren't allowed to get close to each other. And it was good to see them on one hand, but it just reminded me how I just longed to be able to hug them, to be with them, to not have this curse that separated me from them, that separated me from the rest of the community. It also felt like it separated me from God, because why had God done this to me? For 5 years, I lived in a leper colony. And then there's a rumor that was going around that there was a healer. They said that whoever went to him with any kind of sickness or disease or ailment, he healed them. His name was Jesus. When I first heard the rumor, what I heard is that people were going home and bringing their sick people to him. Well, these weren't lepers, because lepers weren't allowed to stay in the home. But as I heard more and more stories about this seemingly miraculous power that he had, I thought, maybe he can heal my leprosy too. Maybe he can make me clean again. So one day, when I heard that he was back in my hometown, Capernaum, I went there. I was scared to death. I'm not sure what would happen to me if I got caught as a leper coming back into the town. I tried as best I could to not stand out too much. But from a distance, I finally spotted this Jesus. You could tell because people were following him. And at one point, he was near the edge of town. I thought, this is my chance. So I ran up to him and knelt down before him, and I said, "Teacher, if you wish, if you want to, you can make me clean." And then, for the first time in years, someone touched me, and it was him. And immediately, I could tell that something had happened, and I looked at my skin, and my leprosy was gone. And then he said, "Yes, I want to make you clean. You are clean now. Now immediately go and go to the rabbi and show yourself so that you can be declared clean." And so I went as fast as I could. I ran there and I found the rabbi and I showed him my skin. And then he said those words that changed my life again. He said, "You no longer have leprosy. Make this sacrifice and you can rejoin your community." In that moment, my life turned 180 degrees for the better, 360 degrees for the better. I could go home to my family, and I did. It was so good to hug them and to catch up with them, and so good to be with my friends who I hadn't seen for years, and just to be part of the family. Ever since then, I've been okay. The leprosy hasn't returned. I was healed. And so, of course, I started working and contributing and went fishing with my dad. We had a little garden. I started helping raise the crops. I went to synagogue every Sabbath, prayed and gave thanks to God. God, thank you for sending Jesus to me, for sending this one who had the power to make me clean again. Thank you for removing this curse. It's just interesting, though. I still didn't know why it had happened to me. For so long, I just assumed it was something I had done that I could never atone for. But when Jesus touched me, the skin cleared up, but also my soul cleared up. I knew that God's love was also for me. And I also knew that God's love was for all my fellow lepers. And so in addition to taking care of my familial responsibilities and helping out there, I started ministry because I knew what it was like to be separated, to not be able to just give someone a hug that you love, to sit down and just be with the community and do all those things that everybody seems to do. And so whatever I could do to have them experience God's love also, I did that. I didn't have the power to heal their leprosy, but I could tell them the good news that they weren't lepers because God didn't love them, that God did love them. Because I knew that that could happen to me, because it did happen to me. But I also know that God's love is for me. And even though this guy named Jesus said, don't tell anyone, you've got to be kidding. I told everybody I knew. How could I not but help tell everyone about this person who had come from God, who was sent by God to heal, but more importantly, to proclaim and preach God's love for all. Jesus healed me. Jesus cleansed me. God loved me. And God has sent me to declare that love and healing for the world. Amen.